Hi everyone, it's Colleen Bolton, and here is my presentation on my learner Nia. So Nia is a spunky, popular, and studious 7th grade girl. Like most of the students in her school, she is African American and lives near enough to the school that on most days she walks to and from school with her younger brother. On a typical school day, she can be found bouncing back and forth between focusing and working hard on her assignments to socializing with her friends. She likes to share funny TikTok videos with friends, play on her phone, and paint her nails. When asked to pick an image that she wanted used to portray her, she picked the image in the bottom right corner because she liked the hoop earrings and hairstyle. She is described by her teachers as social, easy to get along with, and a student with an average skill set. She does not participate in any extracurricular activities and stated music is her favorite enrichment as she likes to sing and dance. Some of Nia's strengths as a learner are that she is social and likable. She can lean on her peers and teacher relationships when she needs to. According to her diagnostic data, she is slightly above average in measurement in data and geometry, and she employs a variety of scholarly habits in class. Although Nia scored in the 48th percentile overall, she scored well below that in the number and operations domain, which is one of her biggest challenges. She also tends to give up easily when facing challenging tasks, which is evidenced by observations as well as her own words to me. I observed Nia a total of 3 times. Originally, I had planned on just one observation, but I was curious to see how she engaged in class when I wasn't orchestrating the setup. During the first observation, she engaged in group work and independent work in a problem first lesson where students were given the math task without being told how to complete it in order to allow for productive struggle and exercising of their critical thinking muscles. I decided to return for another observation to see how Nia engaged with the more traditional pedagogy of guided release that her teacher typically utilizes. Noticing a big difference in the way Nia engaged during the 2 math observations, I was curious to see how she would engage in other academic settings, so I also observed her in a social studies class. This allowed me to get a more well rounded understanding of Nia as a student. Before conducting any observations, I gave her a mindset survey and questionnaire, and I followed up the initial math observation with an interview to understand her thoughts and feelings while she was working on the math task. The first interview I did with Nia was aimed at getting an understanding of her mindset as a learner. She took the mindset assessment profile from Mindset Works. Based on how she answered the questions, she fell into the G1 category, which is just over the threshold as being described as having a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. So she's just in that very first growth mindset um, area. The description for her states, you are unsure about whether you can change your intelligence. You care about your performance and you also want to learn, but you don't really want to have to work too hard for it. After analyzing her answers further, this categorization only somewhat describes Nia. The second half of the statement, you don't really want to have to work too hard for it, was very evident in her survey responses as well as her behaviors in class. But the first half of her statement about being unsure if you can change your intelligence did not match up with her survey responses, in which she indicated repeatedly that she strongly believes you can change your intelligence. Something I found perplexing about Nia was that her beliefs seemed to contradict themselves if you really analyze them deeply. She strongly believes you can change your intelligence while simultaneously believing that you are only considered intelligent if something comes easily to you. This was further amplified in the way she hypothesized about the mathematical abilities of unknown students based on a picture, noting multiple times, as you'll see highlighted, that a good math student can quickly or easily complete assignments. This will play a role in suggestions for her teacher later that will come up in the presentation. In my first observation of Nia, I provided the classroom teacher with two tasks for students to complete. First, students got in groups of 3 to work on the task. After all groups completed the first task and the teacher reviewed it with the whole group, students then completed a similar task independently. I chose a task that an average 7th grade math student would likely have the skills necessary to complete. The independent task was structured very similarly to the group task. It was evident quickly that Nia was going to be the leader in her group. Before the others in her group even got a chance to orient themselves, she was giving the answer for the first question in Part A. It is important to note that this question only required whole number operations. She easily explained how she got her answer when another group member asked. For the next part, Nia quickly knew what she needed to do to get an answer, but she asked for confirmation from her peers and then from her teacher when adding with fractions. For the third part, when a variable was introduced, Nia and her group mates discussed briefly, decided they didn't know what to do, and their hands went up. Through a lot of prompting from the teacher, Nia was able to finally determine the expression that would solve the problem. Similarly, on the independent work, she stopped in the same place on the task as she did in the group work, and although she had the expression written correctly, she erased it and wanted confirmation. My next observation was important because typically Nia's math teacher does not use a problem first approach. I noticed a big difference in the way Nia engaged with the work. She was passive while the teacher was modeling. She took the necessary notes and watched the teacher attentively, but she did not ask or answer any questions. When the teacher moved into guided practice, the students were still in whole group, which allowed Nia to continue to be passive. The teacher asked students to work out an example, and Nia started to do the work and engaged in stalling behaviors when the work got more challenging. During the independent practice, Nia was quick to complete the parts of the assignment that were directly like the problems that were modeled. However, when the independent practice questions asked the question in a new way, Nia raised her hand for more support after only engaging with the novel task for less than a minute. After the two observations, I interviewed Nia again to get a gauge on her thoughts and feelings about math and the challenges she incurred. Here are some of the quotes from her responses that stood out to me. When the task is too challenging, I will give up. If I am almost there, I will keep going. Sometimes in math, things trip me up, but when the teacher explains them, I get it. I prefer working in a group because then you have multiple people confirming your answers. Again, we are seeing a pattern with the first 3 quotes that Nia believes learning and understanding math should come easily, and she lacks confidence when the work is challenging. Finally, I don't really use math outside of school and homework. Sometimes I help my little brother with his homework. So this is showing she also doesn't see the relevance of math to her daily life. So based on the observations and interviews, I have 3 concrete suggestions for her teacher. Dweck 2008 discusses how significant a growth mindset can be on achievement in math and science. Although Nia is considered to have a growth mindset from the assessment profile because she believes that intelligence can change, she does not seem to connect hard work and productive struggle to increasing intelligence, believing hard work to only be necessary if you are not already good at something, thus contradicting a growth mindset. Given the significant body of research in Dweck's article about how growth mindsets can impact not only achievement but the way in which students view learning, I think it would have a tremendously positive impact on Nia's outcomes as a math learner if the teacher were to incorporate some growth mindset work into the class. The second suggestion I have is that the teacher should consider switching up her pedagogical approach. When using the guided release model, Nia was disengaged for a large portion of the lesson. Even when it came time for independent practice, Nia struggled when the problems presented did not directly mirror the problems modeled. Although she did not align with many of the gender differences stated in the Geist 2008 article, contradicting Geist's findings by wanting a quick, easy answer, She did engage much more authentically with the math tasks in a group setting, appreciating cooperation as suggested by Geist and observed through observations and interviews with Nia. Geist also suggests that girls are less confident than boys in terms of mathematics ability, which was evident by Nia's hesitation to engage with tasks that were not familiar, as well as her consistent need for confirmation. I think a problem first pedagogy would benefit Nia by giving her ample opportunities to exercise her critical thinking muscle while simultaneously allowing her to work cooperatively with others. My final suggestion is to make the content more relevant and meaningful to Nia's life. Sita and Brown in 2021 demonstrate that culturally relevant pedagogy empowers students and ignites their curiosity. Nia is a good student who wants to do well in school, but she is often a passive learner, particularly when the work is challenging for her. Like Jasmine in the Sita and Brown article, I believe Nia would be more willing and eager to engage in math if she could see how it was more relevant to her life and community. Finally, here are the references I mentioned in this presentation and used throughout the designing of the interviews and observations of Nia.